the other question I was going to ask, which is how many people in this room want to get into this role, came tonight because you want to know how to get that title and get that work? Okay, a few people.
You'll fall into it. I think for me, I mean, everybody else kind of gave a background. For me, I actually started out in customer service years ago. About 20 some odd years ago, I was able to get a customer service job in one of the early .coms for an e-learning company. They ended up promoting me to be the content manager. So I started understanding content management and being able to sort everything from the back end. So I get criticized very much at work for this. When I start putting my content strategy together, I look at the back end because I was a content manager first. And then I look at the front end because the front end is the bling. The back end is what's going to be driving everything that's up front. And so I just kind of learned from there, went to grad school to perfect that. And just have looked for jobs ever since that is related to it. So you just fall into it, and just if you know that you've got some sort of an organization to everything, moms are natural organizers, I'd say.
No, we're not sexist here. Dads
too. Dads too. But in my house, like I said, my son thinks the pile on the floor is good content strategy. So,
What questions do you have?
So I'm in a role now. I've been doing content strategy since before I knew that's what it was. But now that's my job at a startup. So I'm the entire marketing department. Do you have any advice for people like me who are doing this but don't have any structure around our role or any mentors? I basically have to do the role of an entire department. So it's really hard to actually get things done.
Did you say what kind of organization you're with?
I work for a tech startup.
Yeah, for me, where I have been not in a startup, but in a similar role where it was me. They're like, you're the one in our company who does online stuff. You do that. I quickly realized when to. I think even still to this day, my biggest thing is learn when to ask for help and not be shy
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
And first it was like, okay, I had to organize my life and my responsibilities. Like, what could I feasibly get done in a week, and what is the minimum? And then add to that what can be done by people I can ask to assist me. And you'll be surprised once you start talking to someone about, well, what could they do? You can hear an interest and then start to expand that way. I know that wasn't super content strategy centric advice, but I think,
It's good.
We've all talked
absolutely
about it.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I think part of
And
go ahead.
I was saying to use everything exponentially. Absolutely, whatever piece of content you have, you want to use it online. You want to use it, in social media. You want to have it in the right places, in multiple places. You want to put it in an email. I mean, you want to be able to,
But
get
do
the
it
most you
appropriately.
can out of it, and which was something you were talking about earlier about. This idea of you wish that you wish that they had given you the video as raw footage so that you could cut it up and do different things with it. I mean, that's essential, I think, to expanding your time.
But also knowing when certain things are appropriate as well, because maybe putting something on print is not appropriate. It should really be something online, or vice versa. So you got to think of that. I think the other thing is then look at on-site resources. I mean, it sounds goofy. A lot of what I've learned through social media and connecting with people online. All the people that Nicole was mentioning, I met in person, but I met them online first. And I connected with them at conferences and things like that, where it would be like, hey, you and I have talked on the line, and there are people out there. And so I don't want to say there's a wrong way and there's a right way, but there's enough information out there, there's enough content out there that you can kind of pick and choose and kind of feel what feels right for you. And your product, your technical, the company's product is better as well as anybody. So you can be the only person. You can help dictate that, and you set the structure. You don't have to have somebody else tell you either. You figure out what you think is the best way. The worst that can happen is it fails. There's nothing wrong with failure.
But
I have a question. Data analytics is the next big it thing. I'm I'm wondering, has data analytics changed how you do your job? And if so, is that good or bad?
Yes, and for the better. I took it upon myself to actually get Google Analytics certified. Certification, not so helpful, but being able to use data, yeah, I find it's actually really helpful because I've been a consultant in all my years of experience, so like I'm always telling someone else, like, hey, do this. When I find that I can use data to help tell my story, I feel more confident. And then when I feel more confident, I think my advice is more well received and much more likely to be acted on. So for me, it's been a benefit.
Well, this is where the numbers do count, because again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. If you go to the client and they say, well, we really want this, well, how many people actually clicked on that? Well, we had 3 clicks. And how many people visit your site? Oh, 10,000. Well, then maybe you don't need that. So there is a little bit of it's a tricky balance between the qualitative and the quantitative, and that's the quantitative part. But you have to see how that balances. Maybe there's a reason that there's only 3 hits. That's when you have to start looking and saying, well, we thought that was something really important. Why are only 3 people going for that?
Yeah,
So
that's a really good example. Recently, I worked very small scale. There's a tool called Tree Jack, and it helps you do tests of like what people are clicking on your site, and you can do it for free for 10 people. So it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna get 10 people in our office. We're gonna see like what they click on. Would they think will mean like, oh, like if I click on this, I'm gonna get this, or if I click on that, I'm gonna get that. And they were backwards in what they thought would be there and what was actually there. And so we were able to use that and say like, yeah, it's not necessarily quantitative, it's just 10 people in our office. Don't tell anybody, like this isn't valid research, but it's good enough, right? Yeah, it's a good point. There's qualitative, quantitative, but
the balance.
yeah, every little bit.
Yeah.
Video.
Well, and creatively, it's twofold. So one, we like to go back up our creative and say, this will be impactful. This is going to reach this many people. Here's how we're going to reach them. But it's also inhibiting because it's no longer like Mad Men. I can't go in and say, look, I was just in the bathroom and I sketched this design. Lovely idea. It just doesn't work that way anymore. You can't just share scotch and you'll buy all my creative. So I need to back it up now in data, which is hard as a creative because I don't generally think data first. So yes, it helps, with certain finite things, but when it comes to video, sometimes it's, well, that's just creative, it's funny, it's, there's something, it's like
how many laughs am I gonna get?
Yeah, it's the smell test, it's like, you just there's something there creatively, and it's harder to sell. Like, numbers make it easy to sell. You can't argue with numbers, but you can argue with creative because it's a perception. So, I think it's twofold, and, a lot of the old thinking creative directors, it just, you can't do that anymore. I've seen it, they've reached those, Don Draper wouldn't survive in this day and age because it's a different type of creativity. It's creativity thinking balanced and rooted.
But what could you say at the same time that you can quantitate it by the fact that, let's say, it's funny and people are making fun through social media analytics because you say, this went viral. This is how many, or is that a slippery slope?
Yeah, it's very, the term viral makes me like hair go up in the back of my head. Every client I've ever had has been like, we want a viral video, and you're like,
let's say organic.
Right, no, I know.
It spreads like wildfire.
And again, it's an after the fact type thing. What's going to catch fire is really, it's of the moment right now. It's not even what I posted yesterday, might have made a ton of sense because I was making a Comey Island joke, I don't know. And that's a terrible joke, dad joke, by the way. Honing my dad jokes. But tomorrow, who's going to remember, anything? I don't know. So it's hard.
Okay, can I ask a question that really just is related to exactly what you're talking about here, but just possibly taking it a little further? The film that you showed, and I'm calling it a film because it had a cinematic quality to it, and it was really well done. If that point was not clear enough, I really enjoyed that movie. And I could see how from that, there's so much you could then do sort of the downstream motion. It was clippable and sort of excisable. For that particular production, would that have been subject to the kind of metrics that we were just talking about, or would that have been a moment where you had the freedom to create this larger vision of this journey, as you were describing, and from that, you were then able to obtain, the movement in the other directions that you needed to go, where you were going to be subjected more precisely to measurement?
Yeah, so that's basically a two-part answer. So where the numbers really came in was optimization of leading people to our website. So if we did a bunch of teaser, I think we had 6 or 7 different teaser videos playing in different markets across the globe. And if we found that one was working better than others, we would optimize that and run that more frequently. Or if it was pre-roll and one 6-second clip wasn't as effective, it was something that we were monitoring almost daily to constantly optimize to make sure that we were getting the most eyes on it, the right eyes on it, and that they were following through with the actions to either watch the full video or come to the TOEFL website. When it came to the creation of the video, it was one of the few times in my career that a client called me in and said, he's like, make me a video that makes me cry. And I was like, whoa, okay. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but let's try it.
Well, I think you did, because I almost did. So.
But that's literally how it started. Was he wanted, we were always talking about, selling into him that the TOEFL is an emotional journey, that it's more than just a test. And he said, that's great, so prove it. And that's where that came from. So it wasn't necessarily rooted in, the back end of anything, or necessarily wasn't even rooted in a strategy other than, let's make that emotional connection to a test. But on the back end, 100%, it was a constant grind to make sure that it was as effective as possible.
Do you think an individual, as opposed to a business, should have his or her own content media strategy in regards to their social media presence? And if so, do either of you or any of you employ what you know about content media strategy to your own online social media presence?
I have a whole brand of myself. That's, I guess, how people started to know me in the tech hop world was coming out of graduate school. I started a blog, and it's called Tech Hop Geek Bomb. It's still alive, and this is like 7 years later. And it got to the point where I just put my opinions. I would share things that I thought were interesting and important, related to what I was doing, especially because I've only considered myself a technical communicator since I got out of grad school, and that's only been 7 years, which doesn't seem like it's been that long. Although I've been working forever because I'm an old woman. But at the same time, I had to it was a reinvention because I was kind of starting a new career. It was a second career of sorts. So for me, I needed to put myself out there. How am I going to distinguish myself from all these other people who are coming out of school or have already been established so I can find a job? And so I started the blog. I started giving my opinions on things. I originally starting out with e-learning stuff because I originally wanted to be an instructional designer and fell back on content management because it was very closely related to learning management. And even just discussions, who's pro Oxford comma and who's not, that's still an art, things like that. Why are we dropping "ly" from adverbs? Why are people saying that it went good, or, instead of saying it went well, or, or it went bad when it shouldn't be, it went badly. And my hair, you talk about the hair going up on the back of your neck, that's one of my pet peeves. But I would talk about things like that. It turns out because I actually kind of moaned and groaned about how it was very difficult for technical writers to learn some of these big tools that are out there, because not all universities offer the chance to use them. And I said, they give you a 1-month trial with no guidance whatsoever, and I'm trying to find a job. The jobs often didn't care about you have the foundational information and they'll teach you the tool. They wanted you to have the tool. So I complained about it. Next thing I know, Adobe is contacting me and said, we'll give you a free copy for a year, and would you like to do a webinar? And that's kind of how my tech career started. It was because of that notoriety. People have known me and come up to me at conferences like, aren't you TechCom Geek Mom? I'm like, yes, I am. So it's kind of cool, but it starts helping you get the word out. Coming to things like this, interacting with people. It helps to get you as a brand out, and you get to talk about how you do things and what your mindset is and how you approach things, whether it's content strategy, technical writing, instructional type, whatever. So by me kind of organically, I found out in my digital marketing class I was on track, kind of hitting everything. I was hitting Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus when it was still around, and just kind of blasting and sharing my blog posts with people and using hashtags that people related to. I got a big following with digital marketing after I took my digital marketing class, because I started talking about topics that we were talking about in class in relation to content strategy. Suddenly I had a whole lot of new followers. Whether they stuck around or not, I don't know, but people suddenly started knowing me and knowing who I was, and it kind of helped. So, you know, every little bit helps with how you approach it. How you approach your career is not any different than being, you're a content strategist for yourself, you're your own client. Unless you guys disagree.
I live vicariously through content strategy, filling meetup, social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to apply everything, like you're
Yeah.
saying, everything I know and using that. But yeah, I feel like I've just taken that persona on, and because by recommending those actions all day long, it's like I don't feel like I have space for my own, but
Right.
the meetup does. So.
But they know you because you're the leader of that meetup, so that's the persona that you're putting out there.
Right. Yeah.
So.
We have time probably for one more question. Somebody?
So I've dealt with clients a lot who say, I want to be on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and kind of all across the board. And, you know, with clients who have limited resources, what do you think the right way to suggest they use those resources is? Is it kind of spread their content more thin among many different platforms, or really hone in on where their audience is and just focus all of your energy there, even if that means you're maybe more absent in other areas?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, you need to know who the audience is. Knowing that if it's a boomer versus a Gen Z, you know, you're going to have very different content strategy. You know, you're going to produce different content. You're going to publish different content on different platforms. Even length, you know, it's drastically going to alter knowing who that end user is. Sometimes it's even as granular as, I mean, Facebook lets you profile now down to exact age, interest on a 100 metric scale. Like I can pick you out of a crowd and give you a specific ad for pancakes that maybe nobody else would be interested in, but I know for a fact you're going to like these pancakes. So I would say, every client has waning budget. Every client wants more for less. It's always going to be the case. So
And
I
they
think
wanted
it's,
it yesterday.
Yeah.
You forgot about it. Or I'm sorry, a week ago.
Right. So the idea is really, now because we are in such a heavy data, moment, we can truly pinpoint almost down to the individual. So, really tune in.
I agree 100%. I just said, but also don't be afraid to try. I would always say hone in, find where your audience, do that well. But once a quarter, just try something different. Like when Pinterest and Pin to Buy first started coming out, you could use schema to market your content. I took a beach brand, didn't have any social media presence. I was like, this is not going to work well on social media. They had 5 products. It did really well. And they also have pretty good demographic targeting, lo and behold, even when I tried it. And it's still, still look at it, and it's still doing well. I was just like, really? How? I don't know. So just also don't be afraid. Within reason, right? Find the audience is everything, but within reason, you just try every once in a while something different that maybe you didn't expect.
But share your expertise, because just because someone's, family is on Instagram doesn't mean it's the right outlet, for that message. So, but for you to be able to say to them, well, why? Why are you asking about, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that what everyone's supposed to do? You have to then come in with your expertise and say, well, no, this is for this and this is for that. These people use it this way. And if we're going to do this, it's either going to cost you X, or, here's how we would have to structure it. Here's how we'll measure it, against what you're trying to achieve.
Well, that's part of what A/B marketing is, or A/B campaigns. It's like, okay, we've got 2 different flavors of this. Let's try one flavor with this group that we think is the right demographic, and try to be, the other one, this other flavor, see see how it pans out. Okay, now we can kind of find a direction on
And
how it
Facebook
works.
is actually great for that. It's like the world's biggest focus group, you know, and it's cheap. It's, you know, very easy to get into it. You can test different messages and optimize based on that, so.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.